Hi folks, Roving Landcare Vegetable Watch. I'm Lynn, I'm the coordinator for Manning Landcare, and welcome to my patch. We're at the messy end first, so this is a pile of the green waste from the Tari Recycling Centre, the tip. It's the mulched down green waste. I put in two pumpkin plants here a couple of months ago and promptly forgot about them, and we had our first really big frost 2 nights ago. And so we can now see how productive it's been. We've got, I haven't counted, but there's a fair few of these big, I don't know, Grammar cross Jap pumpkin. Pip! So some very opportunistic cherry tomatoes, which we love because it's July and we can still pick cherry tomatoes. You'll see some up in the other garden as well. They're prolific and very yummy. Okay, so our land's not very productive. It's not naturally fertile land, so we have to build things up. We try and do whatever we can to increase the organic matter. The pile ahead of us, Joelle asked, is a combination of wood chips, which I buy in by the truckload. Whenever there's anything happening down the road, I grab the guys and ask them to drop a load in. And it's the contents of the sheep shed when we clean it out. That composts down to make beautiful soil. So we need to keep our sheep locked up at night or we get predated from wild dogs. Hence we've got a lot of manure, and the base model on the ground is sawdust, and we find that we get a lot of fungi. You can see in here, you get a lot of fungi growing, the white growing in that woody material. So that gets mixed, that's about to get mixed all together. That's the latest one, we cleaned it out 2 weeks ago. And then we'll leave that rot down and then we'll use it. What doesn't go in the garden goes in the paddock. Okay, welcome to my patch. This is my veggie garden. It's been up for, we were trying to discuss the other day, probably it's 20 plus years. The structure itself's a bit sad and on the list to be rebuilt and recovered. But the beds, which are made out of the roof of the old RTA building in Taree, have really stood the test of time, and they'll stay as is. So basically the idea behind the garden was, I'm pretty time poor, and especially I was when this garden went in because the kids were little. The idea was that we'd have something on the floor that acted like a weed mat, but not weed mat because I hate it, so that I could concentrate on spending my time growing rather than weeding. We tried having things in beds just in the open paddock as it was, and it just didn't work. We just didn't have enough time to keep the weeds out, and we didn't want to use chemical if we could avoid it. Hence the raised beds and what we've got. So basically there's a crowded gardening concept. I tend to not have much design, it's all just thrown in. We suffered really badly in the drought, hence like the end of this bed's got new blueberries planted in it because the ones that were in there died in the drought. But other than that, you can see a whole mix of rhubarb and pineapples, and there's broccoli and cabbages and strawberries. As I said with the pumpkins, we've just had our first frost, but I'm still picking strawberries because they're sheltered a bit from these cabbages. And we're still picking passion fruits on the passion fruit trellis. So far it's been a really mild winter, and so we've still got tomatoes up here as well, but we've been picking broccoli for, 2 months now. So yeah, there's always a feast. We'll never go hungry. And we supply a bit of stuff to Farm to Fridge. Sue Williams and the crew from Farm to Fridge, after we did the local leaders program last year with Hunter LLS, we made a connection, and so every week, if the transport works, we send some stuff down there, which is great. Yeah.
Beautiful.
Have a look. Turmeric's nearly done. I haven't harvested any yet. I noticed on your video, Joel, that you'd already harvested some.
Yeah, I had an early dyer.
Yeah. I don't usually spray with anything, so you will see some sacrificial plants that have succumbed to the white cabbage moth. I don't really worry about them other than picking off, picking off the grubs. I try not to use anything, and so some plants in the beds look a bit ratty. Well, they just feed those to the sheep, and usually they, usually they attack one or two, but yeah, it doesn't. Yeah.
Fantastic.
These are those mini varieties. I don't think they're worth it myself, but they're cute. Someone gave me the seedlings. Yeah. Chilies, I'm picking and someone would have seen the post that I did on the Manning Landcare Facebook page about the cherry guavas all being ready. Well, I picked all the chilies to go in that cherry sauce, which is awesome. Yeah, so they were covered. So wherever there's a gap, basically I plant something new. I try and get all my seedlings from Wingham Nursery because they're the only place that does open-rooted veggie seedlings, and they're always really hardy and great value, and they're a family that really knows what they're doing. When I'm planting seedlings, I always pre-soak them, and I use Lee's Biocast product, which is again locally produced, and the seedlings get soaked in that. This absolutely helps with transplant shock. When you buy seedlings from Wingham Nursery, they come wrapped in newspaper. And so they're just soaking in some Biocast. And this afternoon they'll go in the ground.
Beautiful.
And as I said, that really helps reduce the transplant shock and helps them get their roots settled down into the ground. Gets them settled in. Means that you won't lose as many. You have a really high survival rate. Yeah. So we try and keep some flowering things. This is supposed to be pruned, but I just can't bring myself to do it because it's just... I don't know if you can hear the bees. It's just covered. So I can't bring myself to prune it. And I'm sort of not much of a gardener for colour. But yeah, these attract so many little birds. So there's fruit trees in amongst flowering trees and shrubs, and in between that we've got tomatoes just doing their thing and going wild. There's some really good ones up here actually. Jen Lowe from Mount George gave me some seed, and these are the most prolific little tomatoes. Yeah, look at up there. That's an apple. Don't plant apples, folks. They just don't do in our environment. But the little birds absolutely love that tree. And again, I say I'm going to prune it every... Yeah, and I say I'm going to prune it every year when it loses its leaves. And guess what? It doesn't. So it doesn't get pruned. But it gives us lots of pleasure because we can see them from the kitchen when the birds are in that little bird bath. They just love it. And in the drought, we had a queue up here waiting for position to get to the water. Yeah. So mixing ornamentals and fruiting veggies and things is, yeah, just par for the course. Works well. Fruit. Yeah, this passion fruit vine's been really successful, especially on this end. You can see because the wind rips around the corner of the house. The one on the end struggles a bit, but yeah, we've got a bowl full of passion fruit. I love them. So yeah, that does well. They're heavy feeders though. They need lots of water, and they do like some compost and some natural fertiliser.